You can give the people all the goodies Joe Manchin will allow. And it doesn't seem to buy their love. Why? Why is the party that supports so many issues that benefit the middle class still considered out of touch by 62% of Americans? In plain English, nobody likes a snob. Someone who's mulling a change. Maybe this will put quietus to the nonsense that Elon and Rogan too went to the dark side. I hear that all the they went to the dark. Yeah, like they got that The Last of Us fungal infection and became zombies. No, they just got driven away, because that's how politics works these days. One side gets elected precisely because the other side was just in power and pushed their agenda way too far and drove people in the opposite direction.
Comedian Bill Maher has turned his fire on the left over its spiraling woke excesses, and they barely even noticed it coming. Maher held nothing back this time as he tore into them. He unleashed every bit of built-up frustration in a blistering tirade during the latest episode of his long-running television program. Buckle up, folks, because this is about to be one intense and explosive journey.
And that is what is so galling about this. It's exactly what Barack Obama had just told the Democrats at their convention not to do.
Our politics have become so polarized these days that all of us across the political spectrum seem so quick to assume the worst in others. Unless they agree with us on every single issue, we start thinking that the only way to win is to scold and shame and out-yell the other side.
Bill Maher sets his sights on what he views as the left's increasingly poisonous culture. It is a culture defined by relentless shouting and moral lecturing. It also includes the reflexive urge to cut off anyone who dares to push back. In his words, it is not just draining. It is self-defeating. He contends that this style of politics does not win people over. It drives them away. It turns potential supporters into outsiders with a single out-of-favor opinion. What bothers him even further is his conviction that the far left is frequently wrong on critical issues. Yet it refuses to consider alternative perspectives. In his estimation, that kind of intellectual rigidity is not a virtue. It is a weakness. By suppressing conversation and controlling thought, the movement ends up cornering itself. It diminishes its own reach. Maher's warning is direct. This is not hurting critics or rivals nearly as much as it is wounding the party from the inside. It strips away credibility and alienates the very people it needs to bring on board.
Bradley, did you go to the bathroom or something when that came on? Because it's almost like he was talking to you directly, like by name. Don't scold, don't shame, don't out-yell. Clinton had the same message. I urge you to meet people where they are. I urge you not to demean them. Treat them with respect. And that's the thing. The actual politicians of the Democratic Party are generally a pretty sane crop of people. The worst of them are leagues better than the worst Republicans. The Democratic politicians are not the ones calling to defend the police and other goofy stuff. But the kind of people who are always howling on social media, yeah, that's who gives a lot of people the ick when they hear liberal.
I do not agree with Bill Maher when he claims the weakest Democratic politicians are still preferable to the strongest Republicans. But that was not really his core argument. He was making a point, and a sharp one. It was about just how far the far left has slipped. In his telling, the trouble is not only fringe voices making headlines, it is how those voices have come to take over the conversation. They pull the broader left down alongside them. What was once a coalition representing a wide range of perspectives now feels increasingly inflexible. Critics like Maher see it as unwelcoming of dissent. The so-called reasonable and practical voices on the left are being overwhelmed. They are drowned out by louder and less compromising factions. The outcome is a party that risks appearing toxic and unwelcoming to outsiders. That is the heart of Maher's concern. It is not simply about ideological wandering. It is about the erosion of broad appeal as internal extremes begin to define the entire movement.
Drives people insane, I get it. And you know what? I used to know Bradley a little bit. He wasn't this guy. And while he may relish writing Cheryl Hines off, I'm not writing him off. Because that's not the way to handle this. President Obama, if you would, one more time, please.
Our fellow citizens deserve the same grace we hope they'll extend to us.
So I get it. Trump makes us crazy. He just does. I found a gray hair myself the other day.
Bill Maher argues that if the left expects understanding and tolerance from its opponents, it should be prepared to extend that same goodwill in return. In his view, that sense of reciprocity is completely absent. He suggests that conservatives are routinely expected to be patient and open-minded. Yet the response they receive is too often hostility. It is marked by demeaning rhetoric and toxic exchanges. The tone grows more divisive with each passing cycle. Whether one accepts that framing or not, Maher's broader point is about consistency. A movement that champions openness and inclusion should not silence dissent. It should not penalize disagreement. Instead, it should embody the very values it claims to stand for. That is why Maher feels justified in criticizing the left so pointedly. In his view, it is drifting away from the foundational principles of liberalism. The issue is not purely about political strategy. It is a deeper contradiction between the ideals a movement proclaims and the behavior it actually practices.
Republicans have taken full advantage of how snobby and out of touch Democrats have become to claim the title of party of the working class, but Trump's big, beautiful budget cuts Medicaid by $723 billion. Steve Bannon says a lot of MAGA is on Medicaid. Yeah, it is. 42% of MAGA voters say Medicaid is important to them. Let's see if they miss it.
Bill Maher makes a pointed observation here. Republicans did not just triumph on policy alone. They capitalized on what many voters perceive as an arrogant and out-of-touch Democratic image. They rode the discontent directly into power. In his view, that perception has not weakened. If anything, it has become a political tool Republicans continue to leverage to hold their advantage. The message is straightforward and effective. Remind voters of what they disliked before. Maher suggests that many Americans fear a Democratic return to power would resurrect the same cultural flashpoints. Those include cancel culture controversies and debates over gender in sports. They also include an entertainment industry widely seen as excessively woke. Whether those fears are overblown or not, he argues they resonate. They tap into a deeper sense of exhaustion. For Maher, the real challenge is not just about ideology. It is about perception. And right now, that perception is fueling political momentum in ways Democrats simply cannot afford to dismiss.
Maybe this will put quietus to the nonsense that Elon and Rogan too went to the dark side. I hear that all the they went to the dark. Yeah, like they got that The Last of Us fungal infection and became zombies. No, they just got driven away. Because that's how politics works these days. One side gets elected precisely because the other side was just in power and pushed their agenda way too far and drove people in the opposite direction. The pendulum swings back and forth.
It is no secret that the Democratic Party has shed a noticeable portion of its base in recent years. Critics point to so-called woke policies as a central cause. High-profile figures such as Elon Musk and Joe Rogan have publicly distanced themselves from the party. They argue its current course no longer reflects their values. They also say it no longer aligns with what they consider common-sense priorities. Their exits have fed a broader narrative. It suggests the party is moving away from the everyday concerns of ordinary voters. Even Bill Maher himself has been the subject of speculation. Rumors suggested he too had parted ways with the party. He has consistently denied those claims. Still, the very existence of such rumors reflects a meaningful shift in perception. For critics, it is less about individual departures. It is more about a growing sense that the party's identity is evolving. And that evolution no longer resonates as broadly as it once did.
With people not voting for anything, but just to get rid of the latest extremist assholes who tried to remake America in their image instead of just governing. Well, right now, it's the Republicans who are the very definition of drunk with power, and also sometimes just drunk.
I do not entirely accept the idea that people voted for Donald Trump simply to push Democrats out of office. There may be some truth to that reading. But it does not capture the full picture. A considerable number of voters backed Trump because his message spoke to them on a practical level. They felt they understood his plans and his priorities. They also felt they understood how his policies might directly affect their daily lives. Whether one agrees with him or not, that clarity carried real weight. By contrast, critics frequently argued that Kamala Harris struggled to connect with voters. Some dismissed her speeches as too vague or unfocused. That perception may have contributed to a real disconnect. Ultimately, elections are almost never decided by one single factor. They are shaped by a combination of policy and personality. Communication style also plays a major role. So does how effectively candidates relate to the concerns of everyday people.
But you got to win the Democratic primary. It's not so easy, but they gamed the system. They changed it.
And who do you see on the horizon for 2028 in the Democratic primary?
Right now?
Yeah.
Bernie and AOC.
No.
They got the biggest crowds.
That doesn't matter.
It won't sustain itself, but right now they have no leader. Okay? But this is the thing the Republican Party has to understand too. Both parties lost in the last election.
Maher does not sound particularly hopeful about the Democratic lineup heading into 2028. In his view, the party lacks a figure capable of uniting moderates and energizing swing voters. He argues that many of the names currently being floated are too closely associated with woke politics. Even Gavin Newsom falls into that category for Maher. Newsom was once someone Maher spoke of approvingly. But in his eyes, that has changed. He is equally doubtful about figures like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders. He also mentions Zoran Mamdani. He suggests their brand of politics may struggle to appeal to a broader national electorate. For Maher, the concern goes beyond ideology. It comes down to electability. He believes the party must recalibrate its message and widen its appeal. Without that, it risks heading into the next election cycle without a candidate capable of securing a convincing victory.
It's not artisan. It's art and stand. Your microaggression culture doesn't play in the Rust Belt. If a staffer hands you a speech that says menstruating people instead of women, don't say that. Say women. Don't put anyone fresh out of college in charge of the campaign. They've been given participation trophies their whole life. They don't know how to win.
Maher outlines what he sees as key reasons why a growing number of voters have become disillusioned with the Democratic Party. Near the top of his list is identity politics. In his critique, he argues that certain well-meaning policies have been pushed to extremes. They have reshaped systems that were originally designed to reward merit and fairness. He points to disputed claims that academic testing was de-emphasized in some instances. The reasoning given was that it was considered biased. This raised concerns that standards were being lowered rather than genuinely reformed. He also highlights debates around hiring practices. Critics contend that identity-based considerations at times took precedence over qualifications. According to Maher's framing, these changes produced unintended consequences. Individuals were placed into positions they may not have been adequately prepared to handle. Whether one agrees with his assessment or not, his overarching point is about outcomes. Policies designed to advance inclusion must also uphold competence. They must maintain standards if they are to retain the trust of the public.
You can give the people all the goodies Joe Manchin will allow, and it doesn't seem to buy their love. Why? Why is the party that supports so many issues that benefit the middle class still considered out of touch by 62% of Americans? In plain English, nobody likes a snob.
Maher is correct about one thing. Nobody likes a snob. And in his view, that is precisely the image the Democratic Party has been struggling to shake. Critics argue that when voters raised concerns about certain policies, they were frequently dismissed rather than genuinely heard. Those concerns covered areas like science and economics and basic common sense. Rather than open dialogue, there was a widespread perception of condescension. Disagreement itself was being treated as a form of ignorance. Maher suggests that even when cautions were raised about potential electoral backlash, they were waved aside. Supporters of the party were too secure in their moral and intellectual certainty. They failed to take those warnings seriously. The result in his framing is a growing divide between political elites and ordinary voters. Whether one accepts that characterization or not, the underlying message is unmistakable. Routinely dismissing opposing viewpoints breeds resentment. And that resentment eventually makes itself felt at the ballot box in powerful and undeniable ways. And on that note, we bring today's video to a close. If you found it worthwhile, hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more content like this. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.